is absent in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, there is no conjunction. In the Hebrew, you have zod, this. It's a demonstrative pronoun. Let me go here. But this I call to mind. In the Hebrew, it says, this I return towards my heart. And the question, and that's a puzzling thing here, is what does this, the demonstrative pronoun, refer to? What is this? The pronoun is usually used, like in English, to refer to something that has been mentioned before. And the only thisness, so to say, that is before, is that my soul continually remembers it and is bowed down within me, and refers to the afflictions and the wanderings. So all the suffering is the last antecedent, so it's the last participant that it could refer to with the word, with this. And I would suggest that the remembrance of the suffering triggers directly also the remembrance of God's grace. So it's at the moment, if you go through the Old Testament, Judges, for example, or the book of Exodus, right? It's at the moment where the suffering is the worst. Then what we have learned is at that moment, God cannot continue to ignore, right? He needs to do something. And it seems to be these, let's say, trained models of theology or these models of experience that trigger this shift in verse 21. So we are at the very bottom. Therefore, now hope must come. So So I don't see the theological climax at the center of the book of Lamentations, but I see a theological task, so to say, for the reader, getting to its high point at the center of the book of Lamentations.
So I wonder, I am, of course, we recognize the Bible as a sacred text and inspired. We are not undermining anything of that with our desire to understand it. But a reader perhaps who might come with questions could ask the following: well, what is then going on in Lamentations? Might this be a presentation of a confused and wrong theology? What I mean by that is, as you know, we've talked about it in the past, Jürgen Moltmann has been instrumental for me as a young person when I started developing my theological outlook. And one of the central, and he, as you know, was deeply engaging Jewish thinkers. That makes his theology really profoundly attractive in that sense. And one of the, as you know, the key category, one should always be very careful in using the term key category, because people are complex thinkers and everything, but certainly a dominant category in Jürgen Moltmann's theology, like an optic through which to interpret a lot of what he writes, is the word solidarity. And he writes about, even when he reads Jewish theologians and, for instance, talks about the divine Shekinah glory, and this whole idea that God is going with his people into the desert. He is going with people into exile together with them. And then later on, of course, the Christological themes when it comes to Jesus Christ is the one who, through incarnation, became one with us. And then later on, Pauline theology as one who, left everything to step into this profound solidarity. So you have this idea of a God who doesn't stand on the other side of the abyss and the chasm, but actually stepped over to our side and planted his cross among the many crosses of this world. So it seems to me that one coming from this rich theology of solidarity, which is profoundly, not simply theological in an arbitrary way, but it's deeply biblical, that somehow the writer of Lamentations doesn't have it. Is he too traumatized to make sense of this, perhaps a little bit too optimistic or poetic way of thinking about divine presence? What is it about him that he's not able to draw? Forget about future kind of New Testament sort of language, but even what is present in the Old Testament, this idea of God being with his people in the desert, that he's not drawing on that. What's going on here?